Welcome, Simsbury community sports fans, to our first show of a new program called Inside Trojan Football, where we will provide the SCTV viewers with a closer look at the Simsbury High School football program throughout the 2019 season. This will be year 9 of SCTV coverage of Simsbury football, bringing you the Friday Night Lights Trojan home games right here and on your TVs for Simsbury Community Television. I'm Roger Coombes, and I'm joined on the show with Coach Dave Masters. Coach is in his 5th season as head coach after 17 seasons as a top assistant. Welcome, Coach Masters, and thanks for taking time out to come today.
Thanks, Raj. It's great.
Excellent. This is going to be a lot of fun. Dave and I are going to meet maybe bi-weekly. We'll see how it goes. We'll talk about games that have been played already and games that are coming up. This is September 4th right now, and Coach is getting ready with his team to play Hall High School on September 13th at Hall for their first game, and that's on the road. Then we will bring you the action against Amity on September 20th at Holden Field in Simsbury. So, Coach, let's talk about the 2018 season and how things went with your squad. You finished 5-5. Lost your first 5 games, won your next 5 in a row, and your scoring points and your points allowed the first 5 versus the second 5 are what I call a tale of 2 seasons.
Yeah,
very, very different. Shed some insight, Dave, if you could, on that season and what you feel about that particular year.
Yeah, well, 2018 was another year where we had to do some replacement in terms of our skilled players like quarterback and receivers and running back and things like that. So we have had some difficulty in getting those guys ready to go, so to speak. Like, you know, over the off season, we've tried a bunch of different things, and then we start our season, and we're a little top heavy in the season the past couple of years. And what we've tried to do is do a couple different things to get that motor started a little bit. But we had to make a transition with Jackson Butler becoming our quarterback, who is one of our top receivers the year before and hadn't played quarterback. Mm-hmm. So there was that whole process of kind of retooling him in order so he could, be confident and go and do what he needed to do, because he's obviously, as you know from all the sports he played, one of the better athletes.
Great athlete.
in the area. But being a quarterback, particularly in our offense, is a different situation. There's a lot of responsibility. It's not just really throwing the ball. It's, where to throw the ball, and, you have to know everything about it. And it's pretty complicated in terms of, a high school scheme. Chase Mayuse runs our offense, and he brought that over with him when I took over. He came over here with me from Avon Old Farms, and we put this offense in, because prior to that, when I was the assistant for so many years, we were running a triple option. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so run, and now we're trying to do more where we can involve some of what we think, or what, as we've analyzed, we have a lot of skilled players. We're not the biggest kids in the league, but we do have kids with a lot of athletic ability, so we tried to incorporate some more of that receiver. So having said all that, if you have to replace a lot of those, there's a lot of catching up to do, and it really took us 5 games in order to do that. We were pretty disappointed by our first game last year. We felt that could have gone better. We didn't prepare well enough for that in terms of some special team stuff, and we still scored, I think, 30 points in that game, which
Hall at home.
Yeah, it should have gone a different way. That's a coaching thing. We could have, should have, and done some things in retrospect, maybe to try and get the engine going forward a little sooner, and it didn't happen for us. And then we ran into kind of the Southington buzzsaw. You got some of the East Hartford, who they've been in the playoffs for the past few years, but we've lost by 1 point for the past 3 years too. And this last year, that game, it came down to either kicking it and tying it, or going for 2 and trying to win it. Mm-hmm. And I decided to go for 2 and try to win it.
On the road.
Right. And I just, that was the shot, and we took it. And and then we, I do that again if I could.
You'd make that
100%. That wasn't even. That's a no-brainer. And then, we got into that, and then
off to Newbritsky
and Conard, and then we didn't fare well there, and then we had the bye. We kind of recouped. We got it going, and then we have that. So we traditionally do pretty well after the bye. Our schedule is a little more favorable in terms of competition, and then we kind of got it going, and we've done that for the past few years. That we've had some slower starts, but the second half of the season, the past 3 years, we've only lost one game in those 3 years. So we're like 14-1 over that.
That's unbelievable.
We're just trying, and particularly this year, to try and figure out how to get off to a better start, because we really think that we did some different things in the off season in order to do that. So hopefully that pays off as we head into Hall in a few days.
That's awesome. Hey, is there a bye week after 5 games? Obviously,
yeah, there's always a bye week.
That,
I think that's one of those things the state put in to help with rest, and safety for football. Football's never ever been safer, and there's a lot of rules now, and the bye week is one of them. There's not a lot of contact during the week. It's very limited in terms of stuff, and that's really just to save the game from and keep it safe for everyone.
Definitely. Well, that segues us, nice coach, into the next topic, and that's the off season. You played Avon on November 20th, resounding win 42-6 against them in the Gridiron Valley Classic at Simsbury, which has been a great tradition that you helped start, which has been really neat, Dave, because we hadn't played Avon since like 67, 68, something like that. So that's been really cool.
That's a long time.
That's awesome. Yeah. Even though Avon's numbers are down, it's a really neat thing to get Avon Simsbury. But geez, Dave, I know on November 21st you don't lock up your football coach's office. You do so much stuff in the off season with your 7-on-7 tournament, your strength and conditioning, the West Point trip. Folks, there's so many neat things that Dave and the football staff do. It's a full-time 12-month program. Unlike other sports in high school, it's really neat. Coach, tell us a little bit about your off season, because there's so much we could talk about there.
Yeah, that's a big piece of the program. It actually is probably the biggest piece of the program, because we have over 100 kids in the program. Depending on the year, we're up again this year, and really it's unlike other sports where those kids, like if they're playing on the hockey team for the school, there's hockey teams in the fall and the spring, and a lot of kids do that. Baseball's the same way. But football, there's not that. There's the football program, and really the off season is used to try and build the connection with the kids, build their bodies up and make them stronger so they're safer and prevent injuries, and really make a connection, because it is a very intense, it's a long season, and it's very much a grind, and so we try to add some things in the off season that offset the grind part of it, and we teach them. We spend a lot of time on leadership training, as we talked about before, and we spend a lot of time in the weight room. And this off season, we did a couple different things. We entered a nutmeg state lifting competition. I think there was like 30 to 40 teams in the state, and we went in there, and Coach English is our strength coach, and we generally are in the weight room every day of the year. In the summer, 4 days, in the off season, about 3 days, and the kids are committed. And so really, that's a big piece of it. So we wanted to capture that and give them a little competition in, I think it was March, and we went in and we had a top 10 finish in that against the Dariens and the New Towns and the New Britons, and we felt really good coming off of that. We spent a lot of time in leadership training, as we discussed before, in terms of being a captain for the football team. That's a year-long process with applications and interviews and stuff. And we run leadership training courses every one night a week all year.
That's awesome.
So December comes around, and there's a night towards the end of the month where we all gather and we talk about what it means to be a leader and how to represent your community well and what it means to represent your team well. Every single person on your team, and not just the kids that are really good, but the freshman who's never played before. He needs to be represented in the same way. And so how do we do that? And so the captains are part of that process. And then in the summer we take our leadership trip. This summer we went whitewater rafting down the Housatonic, and then the year before we went up Mount Washington, as we spoke of before. So the kids that join in that leadership, and then anyone can do it. It's open to anyone on the team who wants to kind of get an understanding of that. And if you want to be a captain, you're required to do it. And then we do some of those things. We have our 7-on-7 tournament, which is the one thing that the state allows us to do.
Non-contact?
Yeah, well, it's no contact. It's just passing and catching, and coaches can't coach. So we can help set it up in terms of, present it to the kids, and then they kind of have to coach themselves. It's not something that we're allowed to coach. I think the rules may be changing on that, but as of right now, they run their own plays and they go and do it. We're allowed to watch, but we can't.
I like that.
Oh, that's great. And it allowed us to do that tournament down at West Point where I got, it's fun to take these kids and to experience these things like a trip up Mount Washington, and now that wasn't that much fun.
Talk about that.
Yeah, that flag actually went up to the top of Mount Washington. So that hiked all the way up, and we flew it at the top and got a nice picture, and then we hiked all the way down. And that took all day. I don't even know the numbers. I blacked that out, Raj. I'm not gonna lie to you. That was really.
It took a group of 20 or so players
and
up
coaches
to Mount Washington and coaches, and these guys hiked Mount Washington in the summertime.
Yeah.
How awesome is that?
That was at the end of July, and
great team building.
Yeah, Paul Sullivan, who volunteers, one of the many volunteers that we have with the program. He also does a lot of our leadership training. We try to do all the training and then give the kids an event at the end of the training right before football that kind of encompasses and we can use as a teaching tool. So we did that and then our 7-on-7s, and that kind of wraps it up, in terms of that. But so our off season spent really in those areas and trying to build up, the connection between the kids, and then that the thing that's kind of, is I find and I feel lucky to have is the coaching staff that we have, because they're not getting paid to spend all that time, with us. A lot of them volunteer their time, but yet they still come to leadership meetings. They still go away on the trips. They still come in and go watch passing leagues. They go to West Point. They come in and one of the other things we do in the off season is we meet with the Simsbury youth football coaches. They come into the football system, office,
huge.
And we do clinics every month. And so each coach presents, it's an offense day, so Coach Moose might be doing that. And we try to make the connection there. The first couple of years after we did that, Simsbury ended up winning the state championship for youth football, which is great. And so we have a connection there too. But those coaches, which is what I feel really lucky about, like they're pretty dedicated. They're pretty dedicated guys, and I feel like that makes Simsbury special, and I feel really lucky about that.
Do they run some of the same stuff you do, the youth program?
Yeah, they do.
Try to have a similar philosophy?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we've been doing to try and help them. Now,
I think that's really
it's
good.
tricky. Some of the things they can't do, but
sure.
They pick through it and then find out what we do, and then we kind of go from there. So there were a couple of them at the German practice that we had the other day, which was another thing we did this off season, to try and team that's basically an all-star team from Germany. I got hooked up with 2 years ago, and we tried last year, and that didn't work. And then we tried again this year, and the team came over from Germany for 9 days. They land in the U.S. They set up camp in Rhode Island, and then they look for schools to have an American football experience. And so we didn't have any scrimmage room, but we had them up to practice with us. So they practiced in the morning. And then we had what we call our football family picnic.
That's awesome.
And we had all the parents there and all the kids there, and they got to, see that, and it was just great. And then they played some basketball and hung out in the afternoon. Then we had another practice, and then they hit the road for back to Germany. And it was really a remarkable. The kids loved it from both sides, and it was fun to listen to their language and their coaches, and go through the interpreters. But the common language was football, and it was very much the same. But to watch them hug each other and practice with each other and helping each other out was pretty good stuff.
That is neat.
It was good. So hopefully those things are some of the things that we can use, kind of to get us going this year.
That's a unique experience right there for the players and the families to have the German national team here. Yeah. And what a cool
big guys,
experience.
Roger.
Yeah, you were saying they're big fellas, and they eat. They eat
do
a
some
lot.
Eating. Yeah. we were having trouble restocking.
It's funny too, Dave. It's not funny, but as I'm hearing you talk about the strength and conditioning, other coaches at the high school, that can only benefit their programs as well. Coach Stillman with basketball, he had Chase and Jackson on the team. It's nice having that strength and conditioning that you utilize with them helps them in their other sports that they do.
I think that's one of the things that I think people are starting to realize, that really it does make a difference. Like I said before, we're not weighing in, when New Britain rolls out 300-pound guys. We don't have those, but we do have we have guys that are strong. And so we use to what we think are strong and fast. That's what we like to call ourselves. So, and we do, our size has grown a little bit. We've gotten more people into the program. We've, some of the bigger kids in the school have come. And I really feel like I try to build a sense of trust between, the school and the community, because it is a sport that many people don't consider safe. I, however, do. I've coached a lot of sports, and injuries happen in all kinds of sports. And, you know, in my years and since 1983 of being around football, I don't see a huge, a big change with, between sports. You're going to get hurt, but we try to do it so they know we're getting the best equipment, we do the best training, we do we do.
This helmet, folks, is unbelievable. These helmets are spectacular. And this must weigh probably 6-7 pounds.
Yeah, well, they're all, the technology now is so different than when it used to be. There's no, it really does help and provide a safe. And the part of the other thing about the safety feature, it's not tackling like it used to be. We don't. The Seahawks actually are some of the ones that have changed the dynamic of tackling, and it's just like rugby. It's rugby tackling. We keep the head out of it now, and it's made us better defensively, and it's also really prepared our kids and made it much safer of a sport. So
excellent. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a good off-season regime right there. So we'll talk about the 2019 season. Lost 22 players, seniors to graduation. Of course, like any high school program in football, you lose the skill players, quarterbacks, receiver, running back, which you had some great players in those positions. And August 19th was the first day that the CIAC, the Connecticut Interscholastic Athletic Conference, allowed practices. How we looking, Coach Masters? How are the Trojans looking so far? It's early.
Yeah, it's early, and it's the same thing. We're trying to replace. When we put Jackson in there after Jackson, my son. That was some.
You got a new QB this year.
Got a new QB, and we're young. We're not an older team. We're a younger team. We do have some good returning depth, offensive line and defensive line. There's some good solid depth there. We do have some core of running backs, and our receivers are, our best receiver from last year is returning. So the pieces are there. It's really our job over the course of this to try and see where we're at, find the pieces to the puzzle.
Sure.
Because the pieces of the puzzle are there. It's really, we work together with the kids to try and figure out how they go, and sooner rather than later. So we do a bunch of scrimmages. We did the Weathersfield scrimmage, which has been a tradition ever since I've been, I think as long as I've been an assistant. Maybe not, but it seems like it. And then I put a new scrimmage in this year where we traveled down to St. Joe's. For competition's sake, I wanted to increase the level, so we went down to St. Joe's and we scrimmaged St. Joe's and Joel Barlow and East Haven and Pomperog. With the last time we played them, we lost to in a semifinal game back in '09. So that was good to go down there. And then we're going to scrimmage Platt, which is a game scrimmage on Friday night, which is really running through the systems, making sure everything works. And then hopefully that gets you ready to go.
Wow.
But, it's the camp ended and it was a long camp. It's hard for families and players, but we try to get them in the groove because it's so taxing mentally and physically. So, now we'll peel back a little bit and then try and get ready for Hall.
I see. Wow. So you got Platt on the 6th, which is Friday, and then you roll right into the 2019 season. You're setting me up great, Coach, with these questions because on September 13th, Coach Masters and the Trojans take a ride over Simsbury Mountain to Hall, where Dave was the head baseball coach there and helped out with their football program back in the day.
Since 1993,
and Dave's a physical education teacher in the West Hartford School District, so it brings out a little extra juice, I think, when you play Hall. But you got Hall coming up, and then we're in the CCC West Division I, folks. And what that means is that we're in the large schools with perennial powerhouses like New Britain, Southington, with all these tough programs like Hall, Conard, and Glastonbury. Dave, not trying to make excuses, but you got a tough schedule. The last couple of years seemed like it was top-heavy where you were playing as you went through Hall, Conard, New Britain, East Hartford, and Southington your first 5 games. Looks like they shuffled up the deck a little bit, Coach Masters, and this year sets up a little different. Same 9 teams as last year, with the difference being East Hartford's out and Amity is in. Our old friend Ernie Goodwin, who was a wrestling coach and phys ed teacher at Simsbury for years, great guy, is now the athletic director at Amity. So we play them on September 20th. That will be fun.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah.
But let's just talk maybe a little bit about how you think the schedule shakes out and how the season 2019 will compare to 18 or just be what you're looking for.
Right. Well, I mean, they do change the schedule up every couple of years, and you're still going to play the teams in your league. And this year they added the addition of Amity. East Hartford goes away for 2 years, and then we play Amity this year and next, and then East Hartford will come back, and then another team from somewhere in the state will take the place of someone that's on my normal schedule. I think it might be Manchester.
I see.
And then they're just trying to make it so you don't have the same all the time, and there is a little different, and you can travel and see some new programs, and I think it's great. I really do. I think it's great.
Yeah.
So that's fun, and so we play them second, and so that's interesting. And
yeah.
Hall is always, some of my best friends still coach at Hall. That's where I started coaching football under Jake Atone many years ago, and I was there as an assistant, and I do teach there, and so a lot of the kids I know, and that's fun.
It is kind of fun,
it's a lot of fun to do that stuff, and we've been starting with them. We lost last year to them. The year before we traveled over to Hall and we beat them. And so it's, one of those back and forth, always fun, always competitive. They're going to be well coached. So those are kind of fun games.
That is nice. That's a nice first game.
It really is. It's a nice, obviously there's competition and rivalry, but football, during the game you're competing. But after that, we'll go out and hang out and have dinner with, it's just one of those kind of sports.
That's
Paul
awesome.
Connor's the same way. But so the schedule is what it is, I would never make excuses. I think if you want to be the best, you play the best, and you see how you go, and you just have to learn from it. Losing teaches you a lot, as we've seen in the past few years where our slow starts. It helps teach you how to, get to that right area.
Yeah, it's tough keeping everyone in it when you lose your first 3-4 games.
Yeah.
That's tough, Coach.
So it is tough, but I think that's another thing our kids are really good at. So hopefully this year we get off to that fast start and we go, Southington's going to be good. Hall Connor, they're going to be well coached. You never know what
New Britain will be tough.
New Britain's always tough. They've got, so it goes on and on, really.
Absolutely.
And then it ends with Avon, which we have, I think, for a couple more years at least. And they have a new coach who's doing some good things over there, who's a friend of mine too as well. And,
he came back last year. Right?
Yep, he came back last year, and he's doing some great things. I think he's trying to get the numbers up, and they got their new turf.
Beautiful field.
So hopefully, we want football to succeed, and we want football to flourish, because it is so, there's so much to it, and I think really young people get a lot out of it when they put something of that's that hard into it. They get a lot in return, and that's really what I like about football. And I think it's the same with our schedule. You get a lot out of it when you play a hard schedule. You've earned something, and I think that matters.
Do you think that Gridiron Classic will continue, Dave, or is this the last year?
No, it's definitely not the last year.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yep. Our Gridiron Club, which is spectacular, is so supportive. I'd put them up against any Gridiron Club in the state.
Best.
They really are.
That football tournament, the golf tournament they have, the fundraiser that the Simsbury Gridiron program puts on is phenomenal.
They
just
work so hard, and that's the other thing with the coaches and the players. They put in. That's not a shut. They don't shut down either. So they're constantly trying to make the program better, because if you want to compete with the bigger schools, you have to kind of keep up with the Joneses in terms of your technology and your coaches and all that stuff. So the Gridiron Club, fantastic job. Just anything that you need, they worked with you to help, and it's just they do a great job with our kids and the little things they do, from dinners to breakfast to all these special things that make it so great.
You got a new tent this year.
Yeah.
That looks nice.
We always try and keep up with that.
And you'll put that up before the games, and where there's a little tailgate area where the parents come out.
There'll be that, and then we're also going to use it for our tech, because now you can use tech on the sideline. To see instant replay.
You can. That's new this year. Wow.
Well, no, it's not new this year, but we're going to attach it to a bigger. You could use it on an iPad.
Wow.
But we couldn't see it, particularly the old people in the crew. So, I don't want to put my readers on, so we can have. There's a TV monitor, and it'll go in the tent and stuff. And I know it's all new stuff, but football's always the same. But the technology does allow it to make it a little easier and safer in the end too.
Well, that's good.
Yep.
Well, I think that will wrap it up. Our first edition of Inside Trojan Football here on SCTV. We'll continue the broadcast of Trojan Football home games. We do the home games, which will be 5 games. We'll show them here on SCTV. Coach, if you could come back throughout the season, we'd love to have you back.
Yep.
We'll look at some video. We'll go over some video, and we'll edit that in so you folks can see the some highlights while Coach Masters talks about some previous plays. We'll talk about upcoming
Maybe bring
games.
some guys with me next time.
Yeah, that's
Some
thank you. We'd
players
like
and
to
maybe
bring
couple coaches.
a coach or two. We'll even do some off-site over at Coach Masters' office right at the athletic center at Simsbury High School. He's got a beautiful facility there, and I think we might try to do an on-site videotape there.
That'd be great.
So we will bring you the action. We're looking forward to it. I hope this gives you all a little flavor for what goes into a high school football season. It's a lot of work, and we got a guy here. I think there's a twin of him somewhere out there because I don't know how he does it all himself. So Coach Masters, as always, thanks for everything, and go Trojan.
That's right, baby.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.